Time for the roll call now. Jack Martin here.
Terry Dillon here.
Joe Fishberry.
Michael Bean.
Barry Lynn.
Eric Adams.
Jen McCulley.
Johnny
Noting for the
Kirschman.
record that, I'm sorry, Johnny, I apologize. Noting for the record, Isa Avid is absent today.
Okay. Well, thanks for doing roll call on your own. I love it. And I've got it noted. Thank you.
Have all of you read the meetings, minutes of the last meeting on September 3rd?
Yes.
If so, state whether you approve of them or not.
Make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay. So could we have all in favor? Let's go give a thumbs up and Johnny verbalize a vote to the positive, please. Or if anyone has any
Yes.
concerns. Perfect. Johnny, are you okay with them?
Aye.
Yes, excellent. Anyone opposed? It looked like it was all in favor. Excellent, thank you. I think we're good.
They were very good, Jessica. Really good.
Thank you.
Now, before we have business from the audience, I've got a little thing here to read to you. For those who are joining this meeting for the first time, we thought it would be helpful to provide some background on the charge of the Springfield Police Advisory Committee. Members also provide a counselor, committee liaison, committee members serve as an advisory capacity for the council and the chief of police regarding public safety and neighborhood livability issues, as well as assisting with the implementation and adopted long-range plans for police services. Initially established in 1994, the committee invites public input regarding services and issues related to public police services. Comments and information received this evening will be shared with the city council and the city manager. Public testimony will be received during the business from the audience. And as we begin our meeting tonight, I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep their mute on until you're called for to provide your public testimony. The designated time for public testimony this evening under business from the audience. If you're joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak either of those times, please use the chat window to make the request. It looks like a speech balloon in the upper right corner. Please send a comment to the organizer with your name, mailing address, Springfield ward number, subject you would like to speak about. You can select organizer at the bottom of the chat line window. I will call on you when it's your turn to speak. For people calling in by phone only, you are to listen in the listen mode only and cannot be called upon. And the staff will advise who the next speaker is. Please state your name, address, and for the record, and begin. At the end of the time statements, you'll be thanked. Thank you for your comments.
So do we do 2 or 3 minutes per speaker?
So what we had, so this is where I'm going to kind of come in. This is the opportunity for the public to, those who want to provide public statement, that they can make that request within the chat. What we had decided on prior to the meeting was a 20-minute time frame with 2 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes total. And there'll be a timer on the screen to inform individuals of how much time has elapsed so that they can stay informed on how much time they may have left. I will try to make sure to inform the chair of the next speaker so that we can go ahead and transition. Please, to the public, please keep in mind that with technical challenges, it might take some time to transition. We're doing our best to work through this. We'll do our best to get as many people as possible. And just as a reminder, one more time, is just to remember to unmute your mic, and you may use your camera if you choose. Speaking, that 2-minute timer will begin. If you are going over time, I will just try to gently and politely comment and inform you that you're at time, and we'll need to transition to the next member of the public. So I am looking, AJ, do you see any comments in the chat if I'm missing it?
I do. We are getting some comments through our question feature. So our first speaker, and I apologize to everyone if I butcher your name. Our first speaker is Gracie Schatz. Jessica, if you go through the attendees list and you scroll down to Gracie, you will want to make sure and help her unmute her mic. We have to unmute on our side, and she will then unmute herself.
Okay.
The speaker after her is Dana Hershert. Sorry again for butchering names.
Okay. I apologize. I did not realize it was in the questions. I was looking in the wrong spot, so I've got it. So Gracie, I have.
Hello.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you fine, Gracie.
All right. My name is Gracie Schatz. I live in Eugene, but I wanted to comment about the assault that took place at last night's protest. First, I'd like to share that there's a video of Jasmine Delilah being bear maced in the face by Gina Shipman and her boyfriend, Rob Davis, in front of SPD, who saw this assault and did nothing about it. At the July Thurston protest, Black Unity protesters, including Jasmine, were violently arrested and charged with felonies. It seems there is an established pattern of these patriots perpetrating crime without consequence while peaceful Black Unity protesters are attacked. This is not a partisan issue. I would like to see the safety of the public prioritized over our police department. I do not feel safe in this community or protected by the SPD. Secondly, the potential legal fallout from last night's protest, as well as the Thurston protest, could have a huge economic impact on the city due to the new liability insurance deductible of $250,000 per claim. In addition to any litigation born out of these protests, there are currently 4 cases being pursued against SPD. Considering the $250,000 deductible per claim, SPD could easily bankrupt Springfield. We have a police department with use of force and cultural issues. The path we're headed down is not good and we need reform. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. As previously stated, the next speaker is Dana Hershert. And Dana, I have unmuted your.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Dana Herkett, and I live in Ward 1. I want to comment on an alarming pattern of behavior shown by the Springfield Police Department regarding the discriminatory way in which the laws are being applied in our city, specifically during recent protests. The use of force being rendered against Black Unity group members on both July 29th in Thurston, as well as last night, September 30th, has been completely disproportionate compared to the non-action taken on known counter-protesters, the quote, patriots, unquote, committing violent crimes and assault against Black Unity members, some of which includes things like deploying wasp spray and bear mace in the faces of peaceful protesters as officers silently watch. The fairness of law that should be applied to the perpetrators of these violent acts, the quote, patriots, unquote, in these instances is wholly absent, and we should all be disturbed by this bias. As a Springfield citizen, I am deeply concerned, not only from a civil liberties standpoint, but also considering the potential legal fallout and financial ramifications of possible lawsuits involving the Thurston protest and any other protests going forward in conjunction with the Kenny settlement, the McKee settlement, the Umenhofer settlement, and the Baroni settlement, among others still being litigated. It is clear that many Springfield citizens can see the active bias of police officers against Black Unity members during these protests, especially when the quote, patriots, unquote, are the ones committing these violent acts. This leaves me wondering, how far does it need to go before this bias is addressed? Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker requesting to speak is Pam Ayers. Pam, I'm just gonna take a moment and I have unmuted your mic, Pam.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. My question has more to do with the July 29th protest. My understanding is there's an independent investigator being appointed, and I wanted to find out what the status is of that and what the procedures are going to be regarding the independent investigator. With that, I wanted to know, because there's a lot of evidence and videos and so forth regarding the protests, and I speak out on that because my daughter was one that was arrested during that time. Unfortunately, the evidence that the police has provided to her is actually Gina Davis, who happens to be one of the patriots that was also arrested that night. So wrong information was sent. My daughter was arrested in the most egregious way, and I want to find out what needs to be done as far as the independent investigation and what we can do to help make sure that it's fair and impartial. That's all I have.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Shauna Hergue. And Shauna, I have opened up your mic.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak. I was a direct witness to the actual assault that was mentioned by the first speaker there. I'm a Thurston resident and was also witness to those protests. I was a driver last night providing support for the back end of the protest. My daughter was riding in the car with me to protect from us hitting any of the counter protesters who were allowed to intermingle within the cars. The police did not provide any safety for them. I directly witnessed the event. I let police officers know. In the end, my daughter and I were also affected by the bear mace that was used by Rob Davis. We were continually harassed and assaulted. My daughter was told she would be raped, have her head bashed in. They continually tried to block or run into my cars. And when all of this was noted to the police officers at the end of the protest, they did not request any information from me. I was met with just dead silence. So after being involved and being a driver on other actions that Black Unity has done in Eugene, I just have never experienced, we've never had any problems. We provide our own safety. We haven't needed police and riot gear. And it's just very frightening to me to know that I live in a city that I have not only people that are going to be violent against us when we are using our First Amendment rights, but police officers who will do nothing to stop it. So I just want that addressed, and it's frightening that the pattern of behavior that has continued, and both my daughter and I fear for our lives based on what was the threats that were made, the pictures that were taken of us in our car, and I just don't feel safe, and I just would like that to be addressed. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thomas Lawrence is next to speak, and Thomas, I have unmuted your mic.
All right, perfect. Thank you for giving us the chance to do an open forum here today. I, once again, for the second time, I'm speaking about the police brutality stuff, and July 29th is so long ago, and yet here we still are, and we don't have any information about that. Last night we had yet another incident. I repeated ad nauseum last time, and I will repeat it again this time. This stuff is on video. Are you guys even watching the videos? What are we doing to fix this? Rob Davis has posted on his Facebook admitting that he did this last night. The woman who helped push the lady against the car has admitted she was involved in it. It is everywhere on Facebook. There are videos everywhere. Why have they not been arrested? Why are they openly mocking Springfield police choosing not to arrest them? They know that what side the Springfield Police Department is on. They openly mock it. They have been seen cooperating with police on video. We have all seen it. Have you seen it? Why are we still doing this? We are here peacefully asking for help for 4 months now, and yet we are just running in circles, talking about it, but nothing is happening. Bail for people on the BLM side has been up to 20,000 for bail. Why is Gina Shipley still on the street? How many times does she have to assault someone before she stays put away? How many times does Rob Davis have to assault someone? How many times does Richard Elsie have to assault someone? Again, there are dozens of these videos out there for every one of you to go see, for every police officer to see, and nothing is happening to them. But we keep getting attacked. We keep getting thrown in jail and getting $20,000 bails for rioting and peacefully rioting while actual assaults are happening. I will say it one last time before I yield my time. This is on video everywhere. Why are we still talking about this? This wasn't done in the back alley in the middle of the night. This is done on camera in front of Springfield police, and they don't do anything about it. Please take some serious action. This needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Holly Schaefer. And Holly, just give me one moment while I access your mic. Holly, your mic has been unmuted.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Good evening. My name is Holly Schaefer and I live in Ward 2. So at council last week, we heard a few of our elected representatives talk about how they felt after watching footage from the protest in Thurston. They spoke about the actions taken by SPD and how upsetting it was. I agree. However, I think, as do pretty much everyone who's spoken just now, that we should also be talking about the inaction. At protests beginning in June, and then on July 29th, and then again last night, September 30th, we witnessed counter-protest group perpetrate these acts of violence without any consequences or follow-up. In June, we saw a group of people shove and hit a man playing an accordion all the way to the ground. Not only was the man with the accordion the only one with consequences resulting from this assault, but the assault itself was actually mischaracterized in one of these meetings by Chief Lewis. While it is true that the accordion man was arrested on a previous warrant, to my knowledge, his attackers were not checked for outstanding warrants or even questioned by SPD. So is it common that we're going to arrest the victim of an assault and not the perpetrators? If so, what effect does this have on public trust? Then, in July, we saw a man use wasp spray against peaceful protesters with no consequences. Let's not forget the man who wields the flagpole against people, hitting and poking at them. These people have been named, so clearly we know who they are. Finally, last night, we watched as a counter-protester sprayed Black Unity protesters with yet another chemical weapon. Reports stated that it was in front of officers. We have heard that it was in front of officers. We have heard that officers were refusing to talk to witnesses last night. Again, no consequences for the perpetrators of these acts. It would be really nice to not see this disparate treatment based on political ideology, which is a class protected under the Constitution. I wouldn't want to see, yep, sorry, thanks.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you for your statements. The next speaker is Alatasi Clancy. Just one moment. And I have unmuted your mic.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. Hi, I'm a homeowner in the Washburn district. My 3-year-old daughter and I often attend protests and marches hosted by Black Unity, especially when they take place in Springfield. I love my town, but I have grown more fearful for my safety as a woman of color. Last night, I hesitated to take my daughter to the protest starting at the library for fear of what would happen from counter protesters, especially after Trump's comments at the debates. I decided to stay home, but was excited when I could hear the march coming near us. I'm on 5th Street. We grabbed some balloons to cheer on Black Unity, but quickly turned back once I could hear the yelling threats of violence. I am close to my neighbors and well aware that one of the counter protesters, and I'm being kind in my terminology here, bear-maced a couple of Black Unity peaceful marchers. I would like to know what kind of action has been taken. Has this individual been arrested? If not, why? And as countless others have identified, there is video evidence of this happening. The Trump supporters obviously have a First Amendment right to express their beliefs, and I would never want to take that away. But knowing that there's actual data showing that white nationalists, right-wing militias are a threat to this country, what specifically is SPD doing to prepare and de-escalate scenarios like what happened last night? As I mentioned, I've been to many Black Unity gatherings and I believe that the Black Lives Matter movement is about human rights. As a parent, medical, frontline worker, and human, I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I did not support this. My daughter and I should be able to go to a peaceful march in my own neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jan McCrae. Jan, I have unmuted your mic. And Jan, if you need to unmute your mic on your side as well.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've spoken before and my concern is the same and is echoed in some of the other remarks that other citizens have made regarding the selective enforcement that it appears to be practiced in Springfield. I've requested follow-up. It sounds like at least some of it has been done, and I'm very hopeful that it will be resolved with inclusive enforcement, which in this case means the suspect who committed the battery against a family member of mine is arrested. My request is very much like others being echoed here. I also have questions like some of the other citizens do. I'm wondering about exactly what the board's role, what the advisory committee's role is in terms of requiring accountability and what tools might be included in requiring that. Does the committee have subpoena power? Are you able to recommend discipline, and are you able to recommend that with the expectation that it will be considered? The reason that I ask is after having attended a few of these meetings, my impression, correctly or incorrectly, is that there's discussion, there are comments, and the citizenry, as again echoed by some of the other citizens in addition to myself, is either there's no indication that there's been follow-up, or you have to follow up and follow up and call and call and call and pressure to get a response. And as a former law enforcement officer myself, it's embarrassing. This isn't how the department that I worked for functioned, and I'm disappointed that this is how this has been done. I'm hoping that there'll be constructive changes in the future and that comments to that effect will be available this evening.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to pause my timer, and we have just under 2 minutes left in the 20-minute total opportunity that we had discussed at the beginning of the prior to the meeting to establish some type of framework. From what I am seeing, we have 4 more individuals that have requested to speak at this point, which will...
Jessica, correction, It looks like there's 5.
Oh, I apologize. The last one. Okay, I hadn't seen that one. I'm sorry, I hadn't scrolled. So 5 as of now. And just in anticipation of that time limit, we have 1 that would be granted. We may go over, potentially have 4 people not have the opportunity to speak, or have the potential of adding 4 people. And just thought this would be a good opportunity for the SPAC members to weigh in on this.
I'm fine with it.
That's all right with me.
Yes, I am fine with it.
I'll agree to it.
Me as well.
Okay.
I
So
agree as well.
I think, perfect. That's what I was gonna say. So if I've been tracking, it looks like everyone, other than Joe Pishner, I may have missed a hand motion on that. I apologize. I've been kind of scanning. Are you okay with adding 8 minutes additional time to allow the 4 additional individuals the opportunity to speak this evening?
I'm totally fine with listening to more people and taking the time. I just, if we're going to, just for decorum, if we're going to set some guidelines, then, we need to at least try to stay within those. But if we are going to allow 30 minutes instead of 20 minutes, then I think we should state that up front instead of 20. But I'm okay to listen to them. But I think just for agenda purposes that we need to have that delineated early on.
Agree.
Okay.
Luckily enough, it sounds like everyone's in favor of it this evening. And then if we can, in agenda item 7A, this is actually a meeting topic. So maybe we did our best to shore up the initial meeting, the guidelines for this evening, but we'll have a good discussion at that time.
Did we have 7 speakers?
We've had 8.
8. I had 7, so it's 16 minutes. So yeah, I'm good with it.
Jessica, this is AJ. At this time, I show the following are in queue to speak. We have Heather Gardner Madras, followed by Elizabeth Utterback, then followed by Carolyn Rash, Gracelyn Barlow, and our last speaker will be Kevin Shaper.
Okay, agreed.
So we were saying that there were 4 speakers, but there's 5, and then we went back to 4. So is it 4 or 5 we have?
Well, I took the opportunity to speak when Heather would have been the final speaker within the 20. So she was within one of the 5 that were referenced were within the given timeline.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, got it now. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, I reviewed the cadence of a prior meeting to see when this may need to be mentioned. That's why
Right. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so Heather Gardner Madras, I believe it is your opportunity to speak. I have unmuted your line.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity because this is kind of new to me. I've seen really disturbing videos from my hometown. I live in Springfield, but out toward Marcola, so I have no idea what ward I'm in. I am really concerned with what I'm seeing. As you know, this is a historic time in our country, and Springfield's making history right now. There is going to be a right side of history to be on. This is the civil rights era, and it seems to me this is the second one of these meetings, actually, now that I recall, I've been to. Back in May or June, I got worried as well. And it looks like the direction of the SPD and Springfield in general, is that they're going to try and wait out Black Lives Matter and try and wait out civil rights and let the vigilantes do their work for them and step aside and just kind of try and slide by without like making any changes, any reforms, any improvements for the lives of our community. And what I've heard tonight from other speakers does not make me feel any better about living here. There was vigilante, I had to evacuate from the fire. There was vigilantism around that too. And I used to believe that when there was trouble, you call the cops and and they will help you. And I don't know that that's true in this town right now. And I think that there's a lot of trust to be rebuilt. I just really needed to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. The next speaker is Elizabeth Utterback.
Hello, my name is Lizzie Utterback. I live in Ward 3, and I have concerns regarding SPD's engagement in blatant racism and other behaviors which have resulted in community harm and distrust, not to mention financial impacts on our city budget because the police liability insurance carries a $250,000 per claim fee. When I wrote to you in August, I shared concerns regarding Officer 365, who was unable to comprehend why a noose displayed to intimidate Black residents should be considered a hate crime. I also shared that SPD has been seen providing back the blue t-shirts to the white supremacists at pro-police events, which are coded white nationalist rallies. Now I want to talk about a distinct pattern of behavior which other folks have commented on tonight. At these rallies, white supremacists showed up with riot shields that had protruding screws, handles, eye slots, and mounted wasp and bear spray, while SPD stood by affirming this dangerous behavior. The same folks showed up again at the July protest in Thurston, where the wasp spray was actually deployed. Then, again last night, the bear mace was deployed by these same counter-protesters on camera in front of SPD, while SPD stood back and did nothing. None of the counter-protesters involved in the sprayings have been arrested or charged. And remember the July Thurston event where the police were shown on camera sharing strategy with the white supremacists? We now have a clear pattern showing that SPD does not protect and serve everyone. I've seen enough statements from local governments to know that the actions I described are likely covered by unjust policies, regulations, laws, and biased investigations. So what I want to know from the committee today is what will you do to ensure Chief Lewis and the SPD distance itself from the white supremacists, and how you will address the racism that has been institutionalized and systematized within SPD. Thank you.
The next speaker is Carolyn Rash. Carolyn, I have unmuted your line.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Rashi. I live in Ward 3. On July 29th, I was present at the Thurston protest, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my experience there. A lot of the speakers tonight have covered a lot of the issues that have been of concern to me, and I also have a number of direct observations that I think are critical information that I believe that has been available to law enforcement for a while. And as observing the events of last night, I'm concerned that this is going to continue to be a pattern of violence in our community that is not investigated or prosecuted. On that particular night, well, starting prior to that, at other events, I had witnessed a lot of violence perpetrated by those individuals calling themselves patriots, pro-police, things of that nature. I knew walking into that event that I was who to stay away from, essentially. At Thurston, we eventually were confronted by a wall of these angry individuals. They were weaponized displays of tasers as we were trying to get to our cars. I saw a number of symbols that are associated with neo-Nazi groups, runes, Thor's hammer, Odin's cross. Later, I confirmed that one of the men present that night is a white supremacist who has recently served time in prison for aiding in a racially motivated series of murders. And after Thurston, I saw that same man identified committing and inciting acts of violence in Salem. Another man I've seen consistently at these protests, he's committed a number of violent felonies, including assault 2, which is a Measure 11 crime, unlawful use of a weapon, menacing. He carries a flag. He's worn a sheepdog back the blue t-shirt. And on social media, he expresses his intent to assault Black Lives Matter protesters. I saw him at Thurston brandish his weapon several times. It's my understanding he was caught on video stabbing somebody with his flag and in front of law enforcement. And when SPD was, yes?
Your time is up at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gracelyn Barlow. And Gracelyn, I have opened your mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Good evening. My name is Gracelyn Barlow and I live in Springfield near Walterville. Thank you for the extended time to comment this evening. I'm increasingly concerned with the lack of reckoning with the Springfield Police Department's action against its own personnel and Springfield citizens whom should be equitably protected by the department. Yet, too many Springfield Department interactions seem to be approached with an attitude of suppression, suppressing honest reporting about internal ethical and legal violation, suppressing peaceful protesters with exaggerated claims leading to wrongful arrests and unacceptable violence, which my fellow community members have spoken to already. I want to believe that the police department wants to ask itself the hard questions to understand how such a culture of oppression, advanced by both structural and physical violence, became acceptable and even normalized. What happened to wanting to serve the community and to being partners in creating a community in which everyone feels valued and safe? Even if we do not yet feel ready to have these uncomfortable conversations, the pending and recently settled lawsuits involving Springfield Police Department are forcing uncomfortable conversations upon us. How are we going to pay for up to $250,000 for every settlement? The two pending litigations involving Stone and Chaplin alone could cost Springfield taxpayers $500,000 in the coming months. That's 2.5 times the allocation for police body cameras in the Springfield 2021 fiscal year budget, which could have provided additional video footage of the inaction taken by the police department while witnessing individuals intentionally harm peaceful protesters. In short, regardless of where you fall on agreeing with the level at which the police department serves our community, I think we can all agree that money is always tight. Some expenses are unavoidable: the need for food, shelter, transport. The expense of police litigation is a preventable, substantial financial burden that can be mitigated with careful reflection and structural changes. Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker is Kevin Shaper. Kevin, I have unmuted your mic. Kevin, I see your mic is open. Well, I see the mic is open on both sides. And we're having see if we can see anything in the chat. You know, since at this point, Kevin, not seeing how to get in this. I see a detail. In the, oh, I see you've rejoined, maybe. Just 1 minute and let's see if we can get you in, and if that works, great. Kevin, does.
Hi, can you hear me now?
There we go. Excellent.
Sorry about that. It was turned off in the app, not or in the deep in the settings. I'm Kevin Shaper, Ward 2, and I just have a really quick request. Given the clear pattern laid out tonight, I'd like a member of this committee to ask Chief Lewis about what plans he has to respond if these violent militia members show up to intimidate the community at ballots drop boxes in the coming weeks. Thank you.
And that concludes the public comment list that you had agreed to. And I'm gonna put it back to Acting Chair Jack Martin. Thank you.
I believe it's time for the chief to speak now.
Well, Jack, do you guys want to have some comment about the public comment there? I mean, I can respond to some of it, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss that first.
You're right. I forgot one thing here. As a member of the Springfield Police Advisory Committee, it is an advisory committee with membership appointed by the city council. Membership members may not speak on behalf of city council or city staff. That's all.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for their comments. I was unaware that there was an event yesterday or last night. I went and I'm on Facebook and I haven't seen the videos that are referenced. And Black Unity spoke today at the Springfield City Club, so I took that opportunity to go to their Facebook, and I didn't see any of the videos, but so I'm not in any place to comment on that. So thank you for your insights.
Also say thank you for everyone who shared. I actually went to the Springfield City Club to hear one of the leaders for Black Unity. And I'm not in any way suggesting what folks are saying tonight. The leader did not present any concerns from his perspective of last night. So I'm just now hearing these concerns from community members. It was not communicated by one of the leaders for Black Unity at the Springfield City Club today.
I'd like to make comment as well. It's really, I think the city has kind of fallen short, not kind of, it has fallen short in regards to these volunteers at this committee, especially as far as what their duty is here on this committee. And I think there's several folks out there that have made some comments that are placing pressure on these folks to demand a policy change and create a policy change, et cetera. This is not a police commission. They can't, we cannot administer any discipline. We cannot get involved in personnel issues. The committee itself is really a representative the community from different parts of the community, and just as much as the folks that were here speaking tonight. And I really appreciate hearing from these folks and their perspective, because there's many perspectives from different angles, and do know that as a city, and I can speak for as the city because I'm an elected official for the city, that many of you folks even asked me to be represent you, and I really want you to know that we want to do the right thing. We're going to put energy in doing the right thing, and we're going to make changes in the right way. And I have to tell you that there's a lot of folks that are very frustrated in regards to, how come there hasn't been an arrest, because, it happened less than 24 hours ago. The processes, especially to make sure that their own rights are protected, and even to build cases against folks, it does take time, and the police can't advertise that. They can't speak to any active criminal investigations and any acts they're about to do. It's not allowed. So I hear your frustration. I feel for you, but do know that it's not falling on deaf ears, even though it may appear as such, but it is not. And you're being heard, and I bring this back, the voices back to the council when I have those opportunities. But I felt that I owed all you folks this explanation, and at least the position where we're in, and it's not falling on deaf ears.
Can I ask a question? Can someone hear me? Okay, this is Johnny. Hey, I did not understand Kevin Schaefer's question. If someone heard that more clear, could you explain? It was about the ballot, something about the ballot drop-off box. Is that correct?
Johnny, I guess oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Terry.
That's okay, Chief. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think his concern was that if some groups of people actually started staging around the ballot box when people were dropping off their ballots, what would the Springfield police do? Obviously, we would not allow that. That's a very serious situation there. And if we had reports of that, we would obviously respond to that immediately. I haven't heard that that's going to be an issue. I asked the gentleman to let us know if he has some specific information that is going to happen. But we would definitely respond to that.
Very good, thank you.
So I guess this is my time for him. And so I think what we'll do, because there was a lot of comments, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to say this correctly, because what Councilor Pishneri mentioned about talking about specific cases that are ongoing publicly is a little bit of an issue for me. But I think I can do this in the context of, I was going to talk about some of the different events that's happened in the last month since we met. And so I think if you don't mind, in the agenda there, we'll just kind of jump down to case review. And that's kind of where I just kind of hit some highlights of different things that's happened over the thing. And so I think what I'll do is start off, we'll just talk about the protest specifically and kind of give you some highlights on that. Obviously, last night we did have a protest. It was supposed to start at 6 p.m. Didn't really get going until just a little before 7 before they marched. They marched from City Hall, basically ended up north going up 6th Street, and then kind of eventually found their way to Centennial, a little bit of a roundabout way around the different blocks in there. But Centennial went west on Centennial to Pioneer Parkway West, and then southbound on Pioneer Parkway West to A Street. Stopped there for roughly about 10 minutes. Had some individuals talk during that time. Then the group got up and continued eastbound until they returned to City Hall. There was a contingent of people who are identifying themselves as We the People. So we knew this was going to happen by monitoring some of the websites prior to this event. Sorry, my light turns off here if I don't move, so hang on a second. So you know, in preparation for one of these events, a lot of times if you don't have this, these two competing groups, it doesn't take the amount of resources that we employ on this. And we employ a lot of resources on this, and we have roughly between 45 and 50 officers available because we knew that there was potential of the two groups intermingling out there. And so we were prepared for that. And the reason we're doing that is for the safety and security of everybody there. Some of the we the people, that's the way I'm going to refer to them. Other people refer to them as patriots. I think it's just simply the way that they identify themselves on the social media thing. This particular group did intermingle with the protesters as they walked. We were very aware of that. We provided traffic control for the Black Unity group. That included our motor officers leapfrogging ahead, providing that traffic, and our officers coming up from behind, and other officers cutting off side street traffic so we don't have cars coming into the protest. We create a dangerous situation. As we get into the fall, you know, we get out of the summertime here in the fall, and it gets darker early. It starts to get a little bit more dangerous when you have people walking in the community streets without specific traffic control like that. And so that's part of what we provided and planned for, knowing that there was going to be some problems. And we got out of our cars several times and basically kind of separated the two groups of people in minor arguments and things like that. In reference to the one case they're talking about, again, this leaves me in a pretty precarious spot to talk about specifically. We're very aware of that. We do watch all the media sites. We have all the live streams. When these events happen, we have all of that, just like everybody else does, and we see this. And it would be inappropriate to tell you exactly why an arrest didn't happen right then and there, but I can assure you that the case will be handled. There's no doubt in my mind. We had a meeting about it the first thing in the morning, and there is some specific reasons why it didn't get handled that night. And it would be improper for me to talk because we haven't talked to the victim yet. And so I don't want to make comments about what the victim did or didn't do as far as contacting the police that night when we haven't talked to her yet. But very aware of that. It's just like in the Thurston case, there were arrests on both sides of the issue. There still is forthcoming arrests on both sides of that issue. We will get our officers, we'll get out there and make those arrests. And we do utilize every aspect we can to make sure that there's follow-up done on those cases. I just have, you know, I understand people's frustration, and when you see something happen like that, right there on TV, TV, right there on video, they expect something quickly to happen, and normally a lot of times it does, and sometimes it takes another day or two, or sometimes it takes a couple of weeks. I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just saying we're very aware of it. And I'd take any questions from the committee regarding that particular issue if you have them. All right, seeing none, I guess I might as well finish that whole case review if you don't mind. We had a couple, is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. So just highlight a couple cases we had in the last month, and this is the last couple of weeks, and I happen to be at both of these by chance. I happen to be here later in the evening, and then I'm down here on a Sunday. And the first one we had, and the reason you don't see these in the paper a lot of times when we have these is because the individuals are suicidal, and the paper doesn't typically, the news doesn't report suicidal subject type calls. And unfortunately nowadays, that's a pretty significant number of calls we received to deal with. We had a standoff that required us to notify our tactical team to come out with an individual who was a vet who was suffering from PTSD and was extremely intoxicated. And I just would like people to know we got out there in a very volatile situation. The individual was outside his home in front of his driveway, had a AR-15 and a handgun with him at the time, and a whiskey bottle, which is obviously all bad combinations you can imagine. And this standoff went on for probably better an hour and a half, and our officers, it was kind of a unique situation because the individual spoke, he speaks English, and he is not of Latino descent at all, but he wanted to speak Spanish to our negotiator. And it just happened our particular negotiator that was out there does speak Spanish, so that worked out pretty well for us. So that conversation took place in Spanish. There were times when the individual actually pointed his rifle and a laser sight on it at our officers. And our officers, I thought, showed incredible restraint in that given situation. And this went on for quite some time. We eventually were able to talk him out of that, committing suicide or trying to force the officers to do that. And we are running across this, it seems like, much more in the last couple of years. And then just this last Sunday, we had a suicidal subject going down the street, and he had cut himself severely in the arm. Our officers got there. He was sitting down, bleeding profusely, and told the officers that he wanted them to shoot him. He was going to get up and threaten them with the knife that he had in his hand, which just makes a very volatile situation. Our officers had armed themselves with less lethal. Hopefully, that they could resolve it that way. He stands up and actually starts cutting his arms while the officers are there. They are able to get him into custody without any additional use of force or anything like that. And the individual was in such a state that they got him handcuffed, and the medics were working on his cut, and then he tried to break away from the medics and run out in traffic. And so I just highlight these because this is some of the stuff our officers deal with, and a lot of times we get a lot of criticism when very volatile situations don't go correctly. But I think the public doesn't hear the numerous times our officers are out there and they resolve these situations peacefully and without any use of force, and basically showing incredible restraint out there. And then I got one more I just wanted to share with, kind of a little bit of more of a feel-good story for the group. Probably not for the particular victim in this case, but we had a young U of O student, and her family came into town early before they were going to check in to start her college education. And unfortunately, someone come and broke into her car and took the majority of stuff that she had brought to go to college. And based upon some really good help from the witnesses at the hotel and some video camera work, we got a little bit of an information about a possible suspect vehicle. One of our officers saw it a few nights later, what he thought was probably the same suspect vehicle. Did some real good investigation. Actually, ended up getting a search of the individual's house and got most of her property back. I mean, not a giant case at all, but it actually a pretty good case. So that's all the kind of the updates. I thought I'd just share some of these with you each month, just kind of some of the general stuff going on out there. Any questions about that?
No. Just not about that. I do want to go, I don't know what you can say, Chief Lewis, but I know that there was a person or two that said, where is the independent investigation in process to the Thurston? Maybe you could just speak on that so that we're all up to speed on where that is exactly. I know there's an independent process in place.
Sure, and so I want to make sure everybody understands that's an independent process that the city manager is basically in charge of. And so we are supplying all the reports and all the videos. I think someone in that comment mentioned that I think the individual said that her daughter was arrested out there, didn't receive the right videos. I think there's a comment regarding that. I can assure you that there are numerous videos involved in this case that we have as part of what we will send to this independent individual doing the review here. So the status of that case is there has been a person selected, and we are sharing the information with him, and how long that takes is really up to him at this point. So then I think I'll jump, if anybody else got a question about that? I think I'll jump up to start under 6. Yes.
I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that the investigator that is not from this area, he is on the job and is currently actively doing an investigation. So so folks that are listening know that that's happening, but also know that to do the job correctly it does take time, and there's a ton of things to look at, but he's getting paid to look at every bit of it. And I'm anxious to see the results, but we can't rush that.
The city manager, Joe, said that she would give us the name once he signed a contract. So you're telling me he's signed a contract and he's gone to work?
That's my understanding, and I actually had just texted her. So, but Yeah, I don't know what that is, but again, we're communicating and that's happening. So if I personally knew it, I'd tell you right now, but I don't.
I do know the name. I don't know if I'm supposed to be giving that name out or not. I'm sorry. I'm not. If I find out, then it's okay. We'll email it to you. I don't want to do something without asking the city manager, since she's the one running the investigation there. So is that okay? I'm not trying to be secret about it. I think the individual definitely
Yeah, that'd be great. I could ask her too again.
Okay. If you get back up to 6A there, talks about coordinating community dialogue. This is something that this body here has brought up here within the last couple meetings we've had about how to reach out and how to do that dialogue. And so we as a staff got together and have talked about this and done some research regarding this. But really, I think Barry has done some work on this. And so if I could give it to you, Barry, for a little bit, if you don't mind, and kind of start the conversation, is that okay?
You bet. It just the idea, and I heard one of our folks say, we just have to rebuild trust. And I would think one of the ways to start to rebuild trust is to have some dialogue with folks with different backgrounds and different thoughts and different opinions. So I'm in no way in charge of this, but I've been just trying to help potentially facilitate bringing a group of maybe like 12 Springfield citizens that represent some real diversity, potentially being able to involve the Springfield Police Department and have some conversation. And the initial goal is simply to have some conversation, to see if we can listen and learn and do it in ways that are helpful and respectful. And then potentially, if we can get that going, then maybe out of that, we would develop other goals. So I'll be honest, this would be a new thing for me. And so I'm just trying to help facilitate if I can be helpful in creating a dialogue that's productive. So I've been approached by some folks and trying to just put some of the pieces together. But Jessica with the Springfield Police Department has really been a help to me in helping get some of this moving forward.
So if I could offer a couple things just to help move the conversation, then we'll kind of give you guys some questions, or maybe the next meeting we can talk about this, or however you want to proceed. There are a number of examples that we probably could send different types of groups in line with what Barry's talking about here from other agencies around the country of what they've done and what the outcomes have been. So at least gives you something to look at to see, yeah, I don't like this or I like this one. And we want the one thing we want to make sure is that it's probably really not if it's the Springfield Police Department who organized this, picked the moderator, do all this stuff, then it's a Springfield PD thing, and we're happy to do it. But I don't know if that's really acceptable to the community. And so I guess we'll take direction from this body is if that's something you want us to do and organize that, then we definitely can do that. But it may be something, mixed bag where we help some and where the community does it and we're just a participant in it. That's something that I'm happy to do. There's a number of different ways to do this. Is just to have a conversation. Some of the simple ways that you see around the country are providing a simple question and answer thing where the community comes forward and the chief or some of the officers or lieutenants get up and answer questions the community has. And so I guess I'll throw it out to this committee is if you have ideas about what you think would be effective. Part of the issue we have, honestly, right now is the COVID environment, which kind of limits us a little bit in what we can do in person. And I think this is an important enough topic that it's probably important we do this in person. And we have to find a big enough venue we can all sit 10 feet apart or something, and so be it, I guess. We can definitely figure that out as we go. But I guess I just kind of throw it out there for right now to see what people's thoughts are.
I think it's a great idea. I think we should go for it. I've got trained facilitators that know how to do that and be non-partial and balanced. And I'd offer them up if you'd like that, but yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Well, sir, that's, Michael, that's one of the big things we hear out there is if you have the right moderator, there may be some success. If you have the wrong person, then it becomes unsuccessful.
Right.
So I think if you have some potential names, of people that would work, that would be great.
I think, Chief, that and the rest of the committee, I think, would be very, somebody's microphone is open and causing some feedback, but perfect. I am very supportive of that, Barry, and I think that, frankly, I've been waiting around. It's really hard to get something like that a kickstart because it's almost like you don't know where to start, and so to speak, and gathering the right group and getting the right. And I think the key is partners as opposed to facilitators. Meaning, I don't think, and I agree, Chief. I don't think I would be too supportive of the police department being the facilitator / organizer or any of that. But I think the best role for the police department would be to be nothing more than a partner, and that to be an equal with the other folks that are present, and not have the overriding, an override capability, but more, like I said, a partner. I think that for elected officials, I think we have a duty to be present as well. And I fully support it, and I would be very interested in being part of that. And because we need to move forward, we need to start showing the public that there is some serious interest, and that people want to see something happen. And that's the only way to do it is everybody has got to come to the table. And as you said, Barry, is that it has to be respectful and mutual, and with some goals set up right from the get-go, and the goals have to be definable and obtainable, and we have to be able to see, get some outcomes out of it that people can say, okay, this is what the outcomes were, as opposed to a plethora of intangible stuff. So it's going to take some work, but I think I'm fully supportive of it, and I know the PD is, and so that's my position on it.
So to kind of help the conversation maybe a little bit, just some of the ideas of, just to consider out there. One is the size, how many people do we have involved in this? That's then how long and the duration or the number of meetings we actually have. Do you put you plan it to meet for, particular 6 months, a year, whatever it may be, try to make those decisions, and who the specific groups should be the representative from the particular groups. I mean, if you think about the vastness of the different people who have a stake in what happens in Springfield, that's quite a few. And there are a number of groups out there that we would like to have participation in from. I just think it's, at least from my opinion, it's important that the person who represents the group is a Springfield citizen, or at least works in Springfield. I think that's very important. Those are just some of the considerations out there. And anybody else have any comments, or how do you think we should proceed? Again, we're not organizers, so that makes it kind of difficult, because you guys could give me some direction and we could go, but I guess we somehow got to try to figure out how we get this thing jump started.
Well, I nominate Barry, and I'm there for you. I'm unsure, usually you do it in person, but you're right. With COVID, probably be tiles and a big screen. But I think it's really important, and you're right. There's a multitude of different groups that should be represented from Springfield. Just like City Club is one of those groups that's been reaching out and getting different opinions and things. So, but you're right. There has to be some groundwork and some rules.
Barry, let me know if you need help in starting to get it organized and ground rules and things like that. I'd be happy to try to help you.
So one of the things you could do is, if you were to email me, you could get that from, if you don't have it, from Jessica, your thoughts and your thoughts and ideas. I think it would be much more effective in person, and potentially maybe there would be a space at Willamette Lane that's big enough. I don't know if they are letting outside groups come in or not, but that would be one idea. I might know a church that could be used, I think something in person. I agree that it needs to be Springfield residents or working, and maybe a couple of people from that represent several groups, and an effective moderator that everyone has some kind of buy-in with. And so I'm happy again to try to kind of help this, but it's just not an area that I've spent much time in. And like all of you, I've got plenty of other things on my plate, but I think this is important enough that I'm willing to give it some time. But it's just been a slow process because I'm learning as I go. And so we're getting some more buy-in from folks, and I'm willing to try to continue to move that ball forward. I just want to do something that's helpful, and if it's not going to be helpful, I don't need to do it. So I would go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I appreciate that very much, and I support Michael's sort of nomination of you taking the lead on this. But my question is more of a point of order, and I just want to make sure that we're super clear. This is probably for Chief or for Jessica. Before we start talking about how we might organize and work this, do we as a body have concerns around quorums, or do we need to make sure before we're starting to email? My assumption is that this is a council appointed group, and so we need to be thoughtful about the use of email for business on this. And so potentially this is a subgroup that we sort of charge with coming back with an outline that we can all then have further discussion on at a coming meeting.
And Jenna, that's a very good point. And but committees have the ability to create subcommittees, and that's already built in. So I think that's going to be okay. And I don't see anybody on council that's going to have any pushback at all with this. So, but that's a good point, and I think it really should be, make sure we coordinate it through the city manager's office, who then coordinates through the council, so it's set up correctly. And if it's not set up correctly from the get-go, then it's going to be much less effective down the road.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going at. I just want to make sure that we, mostly I want to make sure that the community has the opportunity to understand the direction that this is going. And so that I think that this conversation in this group is great. And in this forum, so that the community can hear and then provide us an opportunity for feedback on where they would like to, make suggestions in this process. But Barry, I'm happy to come alongside you, and we can connect with the city manager's office for some guidance on that if AJ or Jessica are comfortable in shepherding that.
I really would appreciate, because I don't want to really feel like I'm trying to go this alone, and not that I would be, but I would really greatly appreciate some support and help if we were to move forward with this.
I'll be happy to talk to the folks at Willamette Lane. I got some connections with the directors.
So one thing that may be helpful, I talked about it a little bit, but it's kind of reiterated. Maybe we can have Jessica email you guys maybe a list of some of these prior community focus panels that have been out there and kind of what they did, and then I can maybe stir some ideas, or maybe you don't like any of them. I mean, that sort of thing. And then maybe we could start to think about put together a list of who might be a representative, and then that way, based upon the numbers that you decide you want in the group, you can whittle down that list or add to it, or totally pick your own list, however that may work. It just, sometimes I think, in life, especially government, has an idea that they want it perfect from the get-go, and sometimes you just have to start. And I appreciate what Barry said, don't want to fall on our face, but I'd rather fall on my face than not try at all. So, because we can always learn from it the first time, and call a timeout and try it again.
So if I can jump a little bit too, is that I've been in communication with the city manager and whatnot, and there's going to be a information put out to the public tomorrow regarding the investigation and the investigator and that background information, just to let you know that that's happening.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Surprise,
So,
Chief.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So are we done with that particular topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we're kind of pushing the time here, so I'll be fast. There was a question, I think, that Michael had last time we met, was regarding, and tell me, Michael, if I've got this wrong, but providing the diversity training for our officers.
You got it right.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to kind of share how that typically worked. We just had some recent anti-bias training here just a couple months ago. Again, unfortunately with COVID, that's done online. It's done through a company called Police One Academy. They do a lot of video training. They're part of Lexipol, which is one of the big policy manual writers throughout the country. And so they provide numerous trainings on all kinds of subjects. And so with the COVID environment, we've really used that. And you know, there's some advantage to it, some real good advantage to it. With shift work, it can be significantly expensive for our officers to come in and do training because of those who work night shift and everything else. And so we are able to get our officers be able to watch us during their duty time if time permits or calls for service permit. And so we have done that. That's the most recent anti-bias training that we've had just a few months ago. All the officers, when they go to the police academy, are given a bunch of training regarding this. And I'll just hit some of the highlights of what was taught at the academy. They talk about community competency, community policing, emotional intelligence, ethics, implicit bias, legitimacy and procedural justice, problem-oriented policing. So all those areas are provided our officers as they go to the police academy. Typically for the city historically provides a lot of the bias training. And I recently went to, I think it was a total, over a 3-day period of time for a few hours, a couple hours each day, regarding implicit bias and a number of other things around that topic. And the city had done that, had completed that in 2019 is when we went to that, with the idea that they would push that out to the entire employee group, and then COVID came around and here we are again. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Did you have any other questions about that, Michael?
No, I'm glad that there's something. You know, I think going forward, there's probably going to need a little more, and it's really difficult to just watch a video on it. For my staff, we have a series of videos too, but when you get all your people in one room and discuss things, and it's a more powerful thing, but I also don't know how to make that possible right now.
Yeah, historically, Dr. Johnny Lake is an individual who came to our department a number of years ago, and I don't know if you know him. Yeah, and
number one.
I had lunch with him here probably about a month and a half ago or so, and he's offering that training, but again, he's offering it online at this point. So if we get past that, then maybe.
Yeah, we're going to do one with Johnny Lake. So yeah, he's the best of the best. So.
And then moving on, just an update for the board itself here. The culture minority community position is posted. It's out there. So if you know individuals who would be interested in that, let them know. I think I don't have the date right in front of me, but I think it's open at least through maybe the end of October or somewhere in there. It's on the city's website. So just be aware. Couple policy things. We're going to change. I don't know if you guys saw the city council. There was a request by the city council for us to hand out business cards on our stops when we stop and talk to people in the community. And so we are going to look at that policy, how to do that in a responsive way. for our officers. A couple other cities do it. I believe Corvallis and Portland PD do it. We'll kind of look at their policies and how they do that. The idea behind it, just so you know, is that people will feel comfortable if they have a complaint or concern, or maybe they just want to give a compliment to the officer. And they'll have the officer's card. A little bit of a wrinkle in that. Some of the agencies right now are actually removing the name tag on the officer's shirts and going to just strictly a badge number. And the reason for that is the doxing that's going on. The doxing being people looking on the internet and finding people where they live at their home and causing issues regarding use of the web and social media. And so we'll have to take that into consideration and take a hard look at that, because I don't want to put our officers in a bad spot. The officers are given cards. They all have business cards right now. I think what the idea behind this is that they would hand them out or at least offer them on a routine basis rather than waiting to have somebody request one. So I haven't even crafted a policy yet. So as I get that policy crafted or get at least a draft, I will get that to this committee. And then the use of force status, I bring this up because I think people had some questions about it. Again, we're still waiting for the attorneys to do a couple things on that use of force. There's been some changes made because of the new laws that have come out and some other factors. So we'll make some changes to our current use of force policy, just a couple of general ones so you know about it. There was a comment, I think, in one of the written things, like what is going to change. And I can tell you a few of the highlights that'll change in there. There'll be a section there specifically talking about de-escalation in the use of force policy. We do teach our officers de-escalation techniques, but it was never codified in the policy manual. So that will be part of that. And then, as you know, from the new laws that passed, the carotid neck restraint is no longer allowed except in deadly force situations. And so that has been changed in the policy also. So is there any questions about that before I move on? I've got 1 minute so far left to go here. I'm not taking and then the other one, just a general update. The Elks Club was nice enough to purchase us a bunch of baseball hats with our patch that was a specially designed patch about Springfield Police Department that is actually pink and for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So if you see our officers out there running around with a baseball cap that has a pink SPD patch on the front of it, that's what that's all about. So it's very, you bought that many hats, and the patches are available down at the police department to purchase. All the money goes to Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation. And so you will see a little bit of pink added to our blue uniforms here. And that's all I have, unless you guys have specific questions. Get yours, Jack.
I got one quick question. Was the coordinating community dialogue, was that basically what we're talking about in regards to with Barry's comments? Just want to make sure that was the same. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Jack.
Yes.
I think we're done and out of time.
I think we're down to number 7 on this as far as the public comment section of it. Do we want to make what was mentioned a little bit about giving more people time to talk, or do we want to keep it about the same? Personally, I think that it's a lot of repeating, which I know that a lot of people are doing. Same thing there somebody else has said, but still they feel better after they got a chance to talk. We need to be able to give them some kind of answers sometimes, even though we can't give them all of the facts that are involved in it. They need something to be placated to a certain point.
I think it's important. I think the 30 minutes tonight got everybody was on the list. So I don't think, 20 to 30 minutes. I think it'll probably get to the point where 20 minutes will be probably more than enough. I've been on this for years and no one's even wanted to talk to us. So I'm not sure. So I would stick with the 20, and if there's a blaring issue or something, we can extend it.
I think 20 is also good. Again, in certain cases, we can extend it. But I don't think it should be in every single week or month time that we extend it. Otherwise, we might as well make it 30 minutes. But then do we extend it again?
That's a good question.
I think we got to decide whether it's one or the other. I mean, it's volunteer time and it's taking people their own time, which is fine. But, we need to have a structure, and unless something is very, very unique, then we should go with either the 20 minutes, 2 minutes a person, or the 20 minutes, 3 minutes a person, or if the committee has a consensus to go 30 minutes, well, then those are timelines, and they should, to be wishy-washy is worse than to have known parameters. So,
I say 20 minutes.
Yeah, I recommended 20 minutes, but when I was tallying it, I think we'll get better at it, and Jessica will get better at it, because I counted 17 and I wrote all their names down. That was 14 minutes, but the 20 minutes was up because we're still learning the technology. And if we get real efficient with it, I think 20 minutes will be perfect time.
Personally, I feel 20 minutes is plenty of time for them. Because after you've heard about 3 of them, well, from what I've seen this time and the last meeting or two, it's all basically the same thing, just in a different location.
I disagree, Jack. People have a right to speak. Every
I realize that
is different. So.
They can also have the ability to send letters. And also put their feelings in the editorial section of the paper.
I think everybody's
time in business.
20 minutes is where we're at then.
I agree, Michael. Everybody has a right to be heard, but there is a platform for everybody to be heard, and no one is going to be excluded at all, as far as I'm concerned. It's just a matter of what form of communication they're going to take advantage of. If they get in queue early on, then they can be heard. But if not, everybody needs to know that every email sent in is looked at. It doesn't go to the shredder. In fact, I find reading more effective to me, and they can put more in it. They can put a 10-minute email together but only be heard 2 minutes here. So everybody can be heard, and I don't want to stymie that at all. But I think 20 minutes is fine, and I think that we should stick to that. So if we have one person, so you have 20 minutes, you got one person left, I would not want to be part of cutting that person off. But when it starts to stack up, because there won't be any more control.
Well, like I said, I've been coming for years, and this is an anomaly. So, I think if we get better at it, it will probably go back. So 20 minutes.
I concur. I think that's good, just like we did tonight. And if something were to happen, we got another 5 minutes. No biggie, but I think we hold with the 22-minute. And I can't write that fast anyway, so I'd like to read the notes that come through, which is a lot better. I can read them a couple times, digest it better.
Okay then.
What's next, Jack?
Well, last thing on page is membership or members information sharing. Right now, I haven't really anything to mention as far as my neighborhood and area, because the vandalism at the new ballpark has kind of slacked off for a while. And we have, right now, when the weather's still nice, we have the Oregon girls softball team practicing over there in almost every afternoon during the week. They won't have any games until the next season. And I've already talked to a couple of the players that are going to bring me a schedule when they get it after it's printed out. Nothing I'd like better to be able to walk across the street and watch a ball game.
I think we'll just, instead of calling on everybody, if you have something to share, just go ahead and start off if you want to.
So I'll hop in real quick. We had an unfortunate situation at Bob Kiefer Center the Tuesday after Labor Day. We unfortunately lost 3 of our activity buses, apparently to an arsonist. We're still looking into that investigation with Springfield Police Department's help, and are currently moving forward with replacing those vehicles. But obviously a big loss for our organization, and couldn't come at a worse time, just trying to provide services to the community and be responsive and flexible to childcare and other needs in coordination with Springfield Public Schools. But doing our best to get back online, and certainly if anyone has any information to share about that, please do reach out to Springfield Police Department. But that's all I have to report on our end. Otherwise, we weathered the really horrendous air quality. All of our staff and facilities and programs are safe, and we're back online again. Thank you.
Sorry to hear about the buses, Eric.
Anybody else? Otherwise,
I think that's all we've got.
Okay. Thank you for seeing you guys, and we'll, at least at this point, plan on seeing you in November. And then we'll get that information that we talked about out to you here.
Right. And oh, I wanted to add one quick thing. I've been researching the charge of this committee and the history of this committee and how it's made up and what the duties are. Hopefully, we'll be getting something out to everybody, so that way, if you have questions or concerns. But I do know that there's certain parts of it that are behind times. For example, the committee was put together to meet quarterly. This isn't happening. So just changes like that. It may be that we can extend it or whatever, but but that information is coming forward, so that way it really has been unfair for folks sitting here that get plopped into this committee and not really know exactly what we do. So that piece of information should be shared shortly.
It was in the bylaws, wasn't it? The copy of the bylaws?
Well, there is bylaws, and there's also basic committee charge that is part of entire city policy type stuff. So we're getting all that information together.
Oh, okay. That's good, because we were meeting quarterly, and we decided 2 meetings ago to meet monthly for a while.
Right. We were meeting every other month last year. So anyway, some clarification would be much easier on staff, the chief and Jessica, et cetera. So at least they know what the city expects out of them too. So that's all I wanted to interrupt with. You guys have a very safe night.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All of you drive carefully going home.
Yeah.